Officer Daniel Harris walked his usual evening beat through the quiet streets of the city. The sun had just set, and the air was cool and calm. Streetlights flickered on, casting a soft glow on the sidewalks. Daniel had been an officer for 10 years, and he knew these streets better than anyone. Still, every evening brought surprises. And tonight would be no different. He was nearing the old industrial area, where most buildings had been abandoned for years. Trash bins overflowed and stray cats darted between broken fences. Normally, this area was empty, except for occasional wanderers or people passing through. But tonight, something unusual caught Daniel's attention. At the far corner of an alley, under a dim streetlight, he saw a small figure curled up beside a pile of trash. At first he thought it was a bag of clothes, but as he got closer, he realized it was a little girl. She had dark hair that fell over her face, and her small body was wrapped in a thin, torn blanket. Beside her lay a small dog, its fur matted and dirty. The dog's head rested on the girl's lap, and both were asleep, breathing softly in the cold night air. Daniel's heart tightened. He had seen children in trouble before, but something about this scene felt different. The girl looked no older than 7, and she seemed fragile and alone. The dog, though small and thin, looked loyal and protective. Daniel quietly crouched down, careful not to wake them immediately. He needed to understand the situation before taking action. "Hello," he said softly. "Are you okay?" The girl stirred but did not open her eyes. The dog lifted its head and growled quietly, sensing Daniel's presence. Daniel held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm a police officer. I'm here to help." Slowly, the girl opened her eyes. They were wide and dark, filled with fear and confusion. She looked at Daniel for a long moment before pulling the blanket closer around herself. I don't want anyone," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded slowly. He could see she had been through something, and he didn't want to frighten her more. "You're safe right now," he said. "No one is going to hurt you. Can I sit with you for a moment?" The girl hesitated, then nodded slightly. Daniel lowered himself onto the ground, keeping a respectful distance. The dog stayed alert but relaxed a little, sensing Daniel's calm presence. "Do you have a name?" Daniel asked. "Lena," the girl replied softly. "And your dog?" he asked, smiling at the small animal. "Buddy," she said, her voice gaining a bit of strength. "Nice to meet you, Lena and Buddy," Daniel said. "Can you tell me how you ended up here?" Lena shook her head. "I don't want to go anywhere. I just stay here." Daniel understood. Children in trouble often had reasons for hiding, and forcing them to speak too quickly could make things worse. He decided to take a gentler approach. "You must be very brave, staying here with Buddy. It's not easy, is it?" he said. Lena nodded. Tears welled up in her eyes but did not fall. Daniel felt a pang of sadness. He had hoped to help her, but he knew he needed more information to do it the right way. "Buddy looks very loyal," Daniel said, pointing to the dog. "He's taking care of you." Lena smiled faintly. "Yes, he never leaves me." Daniel reached into his pocket and took out a small packet of crackers. He offered them to Lena. "Would you like some?" She hesitated, then slowly took a cracker, but certainly as an actor eagerly, and Daniel broke another piece for the dog. Lena watched him carefully, her expression softening. "Do you want to come with me somewhere safe?" Daniel asked gently. Lena shook her head. "I can't. They'll find me." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Who will find you, Lena?" She hugged Buddy tightly. "I can't say." Daniel realized that pushing her for answers might scare her away. He needed another approach. "Okay," he said slowly. "You don't have to say anything. I just want you to be safe tonight. How about I sit with you until morning?" Lena looked at him carefully, then nodded. Daniel smiled. It was a small step, but it was a start. He spent the next hour sitting quietly with Lena and Buddy. The sounds of the city faded into the background. Occasionally he spoke softly about simple things, stars in the sky, the sounds of birds in the morning, little stories of children and animals. Lena listened quietly, sometimes responding with a small word or nod. Buddy occasionally barked at passing shadows, but Daniel kept them calm. As the night deepened, Daniel took out a small blanket from his patrol bag. He draped it gently over Lena and Buddy, ensuring they would be warm. Lena's eyes were heavy with sleep, but she didn't move. Buddy rested his head back on her lap, sighing softly. Daniel stayed awake, watching over them. He knew that whatever had brought Lena here, it was serious. She was alone in the world, and he could feel the weight of her fear. But he also saw her courage, the quiet strength that had allowed her to survive until now. By the first light of dawn, Daniel made a decision. He couldn't leave Lena on the streets, not even for a moment. He gently shook her awake. "Lena, it's morning," he said softly. "Would you like to come with me? There's a place where you can be safe, and Buddy can stay with you." Lena hesitated, looking at the dog. Buddy wagged his tail slightly, as if encouraging her. Slowly, Lena nodded. Daniel smiled warmly. "Thank you, Lena. Let's go together." He helped her to her feet, and Buddy jumped up, nuzzling her hand. Together, the three of them walked out of the alley, leaving the trash and cold night behind. Daniel's heart ached for what Lena had gone through, but he also felt hope. There was a chance to give her a new beginning. As they reached his patrol car, Daniel spoke softly. We'll go somewhere safe now. You don't have to worry about anything. Lena climbed into the car, holding Buddy close. She still looked nervous, but there was a spark of trust in her eyes. Daniel started the engine and drove toward the child care center he knew could help. During the ride, Daniel tried to talk to her about simple things, her favorite colors, the games she liked to play, and Buddy's favorite activities. Lena answered in small words, sometimes shyly, sometimes with a small smile. Daniel realized that for the first time in a long while, she was beginning to feel a little safe. When they reached the center, Daniel spoke to the staff, explaining the situation without revealing details that Lena was not ready to share. They welcomed her warmly, offering food, clothes, and a safe room for her to rest. But he was allowed to stay with her. Lena's eyes lit up at the sight of a small bed and toys waiting for her. Daniel knelt beside her. See, Lena, you're safe now. Buddy can stay too. She hugged the dog tightly, then looked at Daniel. Thank you, she whispered. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to say more, to promise her a bright future, but he knew this was just the beginning. The real story of how Lena ended up on the streets was still hidden, and it would take time for her to trust enough to tell it. As he left the center, Daniel glanced back at Lena and Buddy. He knew his duty was far from over. Somewhere in the city, Lena's past waited, and he would do everything he could to protect her from it. The little girl and her loyal dog had survived the night, and for now, that was enough. But Daniel felt a deep, aching truth in his heart. Whatever had caused a child so young to sleep among the trash, it was a story that could break anyone's heart, and he was determined to uncover it, step by step. The morning sun rose over the city, casting light on streets that hid so many secrets. But today, one secret had been given a chance: a small girl named Lena, her faithful dog Buddy, and a police officer who would not let the world hurt her again. The child care center was warm and bright. Sunlight spilled through the windows, casting soft patterns on the floor. Lena sat on a small chair, Buddy curled up beside her on a blanket. The staff were kind, offering her food, a new set of clothes and toys to play with. For the first time in many days, Lena felt safe. She still looked nervous, but the fear in her eyes was slowly giving way to curiosity. Officer Daniel Harris stayed nearby, sitting in a corner to make sure Lena felt secure. He knew that trust could not be rushed. He watched as she cautiously explored the room, picking up a small stuffed rabbit and hugging it tightly. Buddy wagged his tail, keeping a watchful eye on the little girl. A staff member, Mrs. Clara, approached Daniel quietly. She's very quiet, she said softly. Has she told you anything about where she came from? Daniel shook his head. Not yet. She's afraid, and I don't want to push her. I just want her to feel safe first. Mrs. Clara nodded. That's wise. Sometimes, children will only open up when they are ready. Daniel watched as Lena tried to play with a set of colorful blocks. Her hands were small and delicate, and she stacked them carefully, one on top of the other. Every time the tower wobbled, she would frown, then carefully fix it. Daniel smiled. Even in difficult times, children found ways to be themselves. After a while, Mrs. Clara returned with a small breakfast tray. She placed it in front of Lena, who looked at the food hesitantly. Would you like some? She asked. Lena nodded slightly, and Mrs. Clara encouraged her gently. Buddy sniffed the food but didn't touch it, as if waiting for Lena to eat first. Lena took small bites, her eyes glancing up at Daniel occasionally. He gave her an encouraging smile, and she smiled back faintly. Once breakfast was over, Daniel knew it was time to take a closer look at Lena's situation. He wanted to find out why a child so young had been living on the streets with her dog. He gently knelt beside her. Lena, he said softly, I know you are scared, but I want to help you. Can you tell me a little about your home? Lena hugged Buddy closer. I don't have a home, she whispered. Daniel's heart sank. A child without a home was vulnerable in ways that adults often could not imagine. It's okay, Lena. You're safe here. No one will hurt you. She looked at him with wide eyes. Really, Daniel said firmly. I promise. You can stay here as long as you need. Buddy can stay too. Lena's eyes filled with tears, but they were different from before. These tears were not just fear, they were relief. She hugged Buddy tightly and he licked her cheek gently over the next few hours. Daniel spoke quietly with the staff, gathering information about any children who had gone missing recently or who were reported as living on the streets. He learned that several reports had come in, but none had provided a clear picture. Lena's case was unique. She had been very careful to avoid anyone who might help her. Daniel realized that the challenge was not only to keep her safe but also to understand her past. He could see that Lena carried a weight far heavier than any child should bear. Her trust had been broken, and it would take time to rebuild it. While Daniel was making notes, Lena wandered to a small window. She pressed her hands against the glass and looked out at the street below. Her eyes followed the cars and people, and she seemed lost in thought. Buddy stayed close, sensing her unease. Daniel walked over quietly. What do you see, Lena? He asked gently. She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, I used to watch the streets from our apartment window. I liked to see people, but I couldn't talk to anyone. Daniel nodded. That must have been lonely. It was, she admitted softly. Sometimes I would pretend Buddy and I were on adventures. We would explore the city in our imaginations. Daniel smiled. That sounds wonderful. You were very brave. Lena, even when things were hard, you found a way to be strong. Lena looked down at Buddy, who wagged his tail slowly. He keeps me brave, she said. Daniel knew then that Buddy was more than a pet. He was Lena's companion, protector, and friend. He also realized that any plan to help Lena would have to include Buddy. Separating them would be cruel and unnecessary. As the day went on, Lena began to relax. She played with blocks, colored pictures, and even shared small giggles with Buddy. Daniel watched her closely, feeling a mixture of hope and concern. He knew that the real difficulties were still ahead. Lena's past had led her to the streets, and uncovering the truth could be painful. Around midday, Daniel received a call from his station. There had been a report from a nearby building. A neighbor mentioned seeing a little girl and a dog wandering near the alley where Daniel had found Lena. It was a clue. Small but important. He took notes and planned to follow up. Before leaving, he knelt beside Lena. I need to check something, Lena, he said gently. It won't take long, and I'll be right back. Buddy can stay with you. Lena looked worried. Will you come back? Of course, Daniel promised. I won't leave you. Lena nodded, and Daniel left with a sense of purpose. He knew the next step would be difficult, but he could not ignore any possibility of finding answers about Lena's past. At the alley, Daniel examined the area carefully. There were scraps of paper, pieces of cloth, and footprints leading in different directions. He took photos and collected evidence to help identify where Lena had been staying and who might have been responsible for her situation. Daniel's heart ached with each detail he uncovered. The little girl had survived harsh conditions, navigating streets that were unsafe for children. Her courage was remarkable, but the reality was heartbreaking. He had to find a way to protect her fully. As he returned to the center, he thought about how quickly life could change for a child. One moment a child could be safe at home with family, and the next, they could be alone, hiding in trash bins with only a dog for comfort. Daniel knew that Lena's journey was far from over. The truth of her story would take time to emerge, and he would need patience and care to help her heal. Back at the center, Lena was waiting by the window. When she saw Daniel, she ran to him and hugged him tightly. You came back, she said, relief in her voice. I promised. Lena, Daniel said warmly, and I always keep my promises. For a few minutes they sat together, and Buddy rested between them. Daniel felt a mix of sadness and hope. The sadness came from knowing how much Lena had suffered, and the hope came from seeing her begin to trust again. Mrs. Clara approached Daniel with a gentle smile. She seems to like you, she said softly. Daniel nodded. She's a brave little girl. I want to make sure she never has to be afraid again. The afternoon passed slowly but peacefully. Daniel stayed with Lena, telling stories and playing small games. She laughed quietly for the first time in days, and Buddy barked happily. Daniel realized that these small moments of joy were essential for Lena's healing. As evening approached, Daniel knew he needed to plan for the next steps. He would work with social services to ensure Lena had a stable home, proper care, and support for Buddy. But more importantly, he needed to prepare for the day when Lena would be ready to share her story, the truth that had brought her to the streets and tested her courage. Daniel left the center that evening with a heavy heart but a clear purpose. Lena's trust was a fragile gift, and he would protect it. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he also knew that with patience, care, and understanding, Lena could have a safe and happy future. As he drove through the city streets, Daniel thought about the little girl and her loyal dog. They had survived the night together, and now they had a chance at a new life. The truth of Lena's past was still hidden, but Daniel was determined. He would uncover it gently, and he would make sure that nothing would harm her again. The night settled over the city, calm but full of secrets. Among those secrets was the story of Lena and Buddy, a story of survival, courage, and trust. And though the journey ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: Officer Daniel Harris would not rest until Lena was safe and her heart could finally heal. The next morning, Officer Daniel Harris arrived at the child care center early. The sun had barely risen, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and orange. Lena was already awake, sitting on a small mat with Buddy resting beside her. She looked at Daniel with cautious eyes, unsure of what the day would bring. Good morning, Lena, Daniel said gently, kneeling beside her. Did you sleep well? Lena nodded slowly. Yes, a little. That's good, he said. Today, I want to help you feel even safer. We will take small steps, one at a time. Lena glanced at Buddy, then back at Daniel. She seemed to understand that he was not going to rush her. She trusted him a little more with each passing moment. Daniel smiled and reached into his bag, pulling out a small notebook and colored pencils. Would you like to draw something, Lena? He asked. You can draw anywhere you want. It could be your house, your dog, or even something you imagine. Lena hesitated for a moment, then picked up a pencil. Slowly, she began to draw Buddy chasing a ball in a park. Her lines were careful, and her small face showed concentration. Daniel watched quietly, realizing that children often expressed feelings through their art before they could speak them. After a while, Lena looked up and whispered, "I miss home." Daniel's heart tightened. He did not know what kind of home she had lost, but he could see the pain in her eyes. "I understand," he said softly. "It's okay to miss home. Can you tell me a little about it?" Lena shook her head. "Not yet. Too sad." Daniel nodded. "That's okay, Lena. You don't have to tell me now. We can wait until you are ready." For the rest of the morning, Daniel stayed close, helping Lena with small tasks, like organizing her crayons, stacking blocks, and playing gentle games. Buddy followed every move, watching Daniel carefully, as if making sure the officer would not harm his little friend. By late morning, Daniel received a call from a nearby neighborhood watch group. They had information about a woman who sometimes took children into her care but had a history of neglect. The reports were vague, but it was a lead. Daniel's thoughts immediately went to Lena. Could this woman have been connected to her disappearance? He decided to act cautiously. He could not let Lena know yet, as he did not want to frighten her. Daniel made a plan to investigate without causing panic. Lena needed to feel safe, and she needed to trust him completely before leaving the center for a few hours. Daniel knelt beside Lena. "I have some work to do. Lena, I need to check on something for you. Buddy can stay here with you, and I will come back as soon as I can." Lena hugged Buddy tightly. "Will you come back?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I promise," Daniel said firmly. "I will always come back for you." As he drove through the streets, Daniel's mind raced. He thought about Lena's past, the harsh streets she had survived, and the trust she was slowly learning to place in others. He knew that uncovering the truth would be painful, but it was necessary to keep her safe. He arrived at a small apartment building on the edge of the neighborhood. The reports had described a woman who was sometimes seen with children in need. Daniel approached carefully, observing the building and the surrounding area. It was quiet, almost too quiet. He could see traces of discarded toys and old clothing near the back alley, signs that children had been there. Daniel's stomach tightened. He knew he was on the right track, but he also realized that confronting the situation directly could be dangerous. He decided to take photographs and make notes before reporting back to his department. The evidence needed to be solid before any action could be taken. After a careful inspection, Daniel returned to the patrol car and made a call to his supervisor. "I have information about a woman who might have been involved in child neglect," he said. "I need permission to investigate further." His supervisor agreed, and Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. Lena's safety depended on him acting carefully and decisively. He knew that the little girl had been through too much already, and he would not allow anyone to harm her again. Back at the center, Lena was waiting with Buddy. She ran to Daniel as soon as she saw him. "You're back," she said, relief evident in her voice. "I told you I would come back," Daniel said warmly, "and I always keep my promises." Lena hugged Buddy tightly and looked at Daniel. "Did you find anything?" Daniel shook his head slightly. "Not yet, Lena. But we are taking steps to make sure you are safe. That's the most important thing right now." Lena nodded slowly. She did not fully understand what Daniel was doing, but she trusted him. That trust was fragile, but it was growing. In the following days, Daniel worked tirelessly. He visited the neighborhoods Lena might have known, spoke with neighbors, and collected information about anyone who had interacted with her. Slowly, a picture began to form. Lena had been living with a woman who promised to take care of her but had treated her poorly. The woman had left her alone on the streets, forcing her to survive with only Buddy for company. Daniel felt a deep sadness. No child should have to experience such neglect. He also felt anger at the woman who had allowed this to happen. But most of all, he felt determination. Lena deserved justice, but she also deserved a future filled with safety, love, and care. One afternoon, Daniel returned to the center with a small package of toys and a new blanket for Lena. He knelt beside her and handed her the gifts. "These are for you, Lena. I want you to know that people care about you." Lena's eyes widened as she took the blanket and hugged it to her chest. Buddy sniffed the toys and wagged his tail. Lena smiled faintly, the first real smile since Daniel had found her in the alley. "You're kind," she said softly. Daniel smiled. "I'm just doing what's right." "You are very brave, Lena, and you deserve kindness." Over the next few days, Lena began to open up more. She still did not speak about her past in detail, but she allowed Daniel to be near her. She played with Buddy, drew pictures, and even laughed softly during story time. Daniel knew that healing took time, but he could see progress. One evening, as Daniel was about to leave, Lena whispered, "Can I tell you something tomorrow?" "Of course," Daniel said gently. "Whenever you're ready, I will listen." Lena nodded and hugged Buddy. Daniel left the center that evening with a heavy heart but a sense of hope. He knew that uncovering Lena's story would be difficult, but he also knew that she would not face it alone. The next morning, Daniel returned to the center. Lena ran to him, holding Buddy close. "I want to tell you today," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "Whenever you are ready, Lena, I am here to listen." She took a deep breath and began. "The woman, she said she would take care of me, but she didn't. She left me, and I had to stay on the streets. I didn't know what to do. Buddy and we tried to stay safe." Daniel listened carefully, his heart aching for the little girl. "Thank you for telling me, Lena. That was very brave." Lena nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I didn't want anyone to find out. I was scared. It's okay, Daniel said softly. You are safe now. No one will hurt you again. Buddy barked softly, nuzzling Lena. She hugged him tightly. Daniel realized that the bond between the girl and her dog had kept her alive. Buddy had been her protector, friend, and source of comfort. Daniel knew that the next step was to take action to ensure the woman could not harm any other children. But he also knew that Lena needed time to heal. The little girl had survived fear, loneliness, and neglect. And now she could begin to experience trust, safety, and care. As the day ended, Daniel watched Lena and Buddy playing quietly. The sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow. Lena's laughter was soft, but it was real. Daniel felt a mixture of relief and determination. He had begun to uncover the truth, but he also knew the journey was far from over. The story of Lena's past was painful, but her future could be different. With care, patience, and protection, she could learn to trust again. And Daniel knew that as long as he was there, she would never face the streets alone again. The city outside was busy, full of noise and movement. But inside the center, Lena and Buddy were safe. For now, that was enough. And Daniel promised himself that he would not rest until the truth was fully uncovered and justice had been served. The next morning, Officer Daniel Harris arrived at the child care center earlier than usual. The sun was bright, and the warm light filled the room where Lena was playing quietly with Buddy. She looked up when Daniel entered, a small smile appearing on her face. "Good morning, Lena," Daniel said gently. "Are you ready for another day?" Lena nodded, hugging Buddy tightly. "Yes," she said softly. Daniel sat on a small chair nearby, watching her. He had spent the past few days helping Lena feel safe, and he was beginning to see the little girl bloom slowly despite the hardships she had endured. But he also knew that the real challenge was just beginning. He needed to uncover more about her past to ensure she would never be in danger again. After breakfast, Daniel met quietly with Mrs. Clara, the center staff member who had been helping Lena. "We have to be careful," Daniel said. "Lena is starting to trust us, but she is still fragile. We cannot push her too much, or she may shut down again." Mrs. Clara nodded. "I understand, but we can help her in small steps. She is beginning to feel safe here, and that is the most important thing." Daniel agreed. "We also need to find the woman who left her on the streets. She must be held responsible, and no other child should go through what Lena experienced." Later that morning, Daniel returned to his office to review the information he had gathered about the woman. Her name was Margaret, and she had a history of neglecting children in her care. Neighbors reported seeing her give children minimal food and leave them alone for long periods. Daniel's heart sank as he read the reports. Lena had survived far more than anyone should ever have to endure. He decided to visit Margaret's apartment again, this time with more preparation. He needed evidence that could ensure Margaret would face consequences. Daniel drove carefully through the streets, Buddy's small presence in Lena's mind reminding him why this investigation mattered so much. When he reached the building, Daniel observed the surroundings quietly. There were signs of children's presence, old toys in the courtyard, worn blankets near the back door, and small footprints in the dirt. Daniel took photographs and wrote detailed notes, careful to record every small detail. As he returned to the car, he realized how much courage Lena had shown. She had survived in this world with only her dog by her side. It was a story that could break anyone's heart, but Daniel's determination grew stronger. He would not let her suffer again. Back at the center, Daniel prepared to speak with Lena. He wanted to guide her gently through the next steps without scaring her. He knelt beside her, keeping his voice soft and calm. "Lena," he said, "I found some information that might explain why you were on the streets. You don't have to tell me anything if you are not ready, but when you are, I want to help you feel safe and strong." Lena looked at Buddy, then back at Daniel. "I want to know," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "Okay, we will take small steps, and I will be with you the whole time." He explained carefully what he had learned about Margaret, without using frightening words. Lena listened quietly, holding Buddy's paw in her hand. Daniel could see the fear in her eyes, but he also saw determination. She wanted answers, and she wanted safety. "Margaret didn't take care of you properly," Daniel said gently. "She left you alone on the streets, and that was not your fault. You were brave. Lena and Buddy helped you stay safe." Lena's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "I was scared," she whispered. "I know," Daniel said softly. "It's okay to feel scared, but you are safe now, and I will make sure nothing bad happens to you again." Over the next few days, Daniel and his team gathered more evidence about Margaret. They spoke with neighbors, checked records, and documented everything. Each piece of information was another step toward justice for Lena. Meanwhile, Lena began to show more confidence at the center. She played with Buddy, drew pictures, and even laughed softly during story time. Daniel noticed how much she had grown in just a few days. The little girl who had slept among trash now smiled and explored the world around her. One afternoon, Daniel took Lena and Buddy to a small park near the center. The sun was warm, and the grass was soft under their feet. Lena ran with Buddy, letting him chase after her while she laughed freely. Daniel watched, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. Lena was beginning to experience joy, something she had not known in a long time. As they sat on a bench, Daniel spoke gently. Lena, do you feel ready to tell me more about your time with Margaret? Lena hesitated, then nodded. She didn't feed me properly, she said softly. I was hungry a lot, and sometimes I was locked in a room. Daniel's heart ached. I'm so sorry, Lena, that was very wrong. But you are safe now, and Buddy helped you survive. You are very brave. Lena hugged Buddy tightly, then looked at Daniel. Will she be punished? Daniel nodded. Yes, Lena, we are collecting everything we need to make sure she cannot hurt anyone else. You don't have to worry about her. The little girl's eyes filled with tears, but they were different now. They were tears of relief, not just fear. She had faced the truth and found safety. Buddy rested his head on her lap, and she stroked his fur gently. Back at the center, Daniel continued his work. He coordinated with social services, making plans for Lena's long-term care. They wanted her to have a stable home, education, and support for Buddy. Daniel knew that this was essential for her healing. That evening, Lena drew a picture of her and Buddy in a sunny field. She handed it to Daniel, smiling faintly. For you, she said. Daniel took the picture and smiled. Thank you, Lena. This is beautiful. You and Buddy are very brave. The next morning, Daniel received word that Margaret had been located. Officers were prepared to approach her carefully, using the evidence Daniel and his team had gathered. Lena was informed gently, and she clutched Buddy's paw tightly. She was nervous but also relieved. Daniel assured her that she would be safe and that justice would be done. When Margaret was confronted, she tried to deny her actions, but the evidence was clear. The neighbors' statements, photographs, and records left no doubt. Margaret would face consequences, and no other child would be harmed by her again. After the case was resolved, Daniel returned to the center. Lena ran to him, hugging Buddy tightly. Everything is okay? She asked. Yes, Lena, Daniel said warmly. Everything is okay. You are safe, and nothing bad will happen to you again. Lena smiled, a real bright smile that filled the room with warmth. Buddy wagged his tail happily, sensing her joy. Daniel felt a deep sense of relief. He had kept his promise to protect her. That evening, Daniel sat quietly in his patrol car outside the center. He looked at Lena and Buddy through the window, playing happily. The little girl who had once slept among trash now had a chance at a future filled with safety, love, and care. Daniel knew that Lena's journey was not over, but she had survived the hardest part. She had faced fear, neglect, and uncertainty, yet she had shown courage beyond her years. And now, with Buddy by her side and people who cared for her, she could begin to heal. The city outside was busy, full of noise and movement, but inside the center, Lena and Buddy were safe. For the first time in a long while, she could rest, play, and dream of a better life. Daniel promised himself that he would continue to watch over her, guiding her gently toward a brighter future. And though the story of Lena's past had broken his heart, the strength she had shown gave him hope. The little girl and her loyal dog had survived, and that survival was the beginning of something new, something filled with love, trust, and safety. The morning sun shone brightly over the city, and the child care center was alive with the sounds of children playing and laughing. Lena sat on a small mat with Buddy beside her, her small hands carefully drawing pictures of flowers, trees, and herself with her loyal dog. For the first time in her life, she felt calm and safe. Officer Daniel Harris walked into the room quietly, smiling as he saw the little girl. Lena looked up and waved, her smile bright and genuine. Buddy barked softly, wagging his tail in excitement. Daniel felt a deep warmth in his heart. The journey had been long and difficult, but Lena was finally beginning to live a life free from fear. Good morning, Lena, Daniel said gently. Are you ready for today? Lena nodded. Yes, she replied. I want to play outside today. Daniel smiled. That sounds like a great idea. Let's get ready. He helped Lena put on a bright jacket, and together they walked to the small playground behind the center. Buddy ran ahead, sniffing the grass and wagging his tail. Lena giggled as he chased a butterfly and returned to her side. For the first time, she felt the joy of freedom and safety, something she had been denied for far too long. As they played, Daniel thought about how far Lena had come. A few weeks ago, she had been sleeping among trash in a dark alley, surviving on her courage and Buddy's loyalty. Now she was laughing, playing, and beginning to trust the world again. Daniel's heart swelled with pride and hope. After a while, they sat under a large tree, Buddy resting his head on Lena's lap. Daniel spoke gently. Lena, you are very brave. You survived so much, and now you have the chance to live safely. Do you feel ready for a new home? Lena looked at Buddy, then back at Daniel. I think so, she whispered. I just want Buddy to be with me. Daniel nodded. Of course Buddy will stay with you. No one can separate you from him. You and Buddy will always be together. That afternoon, Daniel introduced Lena to a family who had agreed to foster her. They were kind, warm, and welcoming. Lena was shy at first, but as she saw the smiles and gentle gestures of the family, she felt a small spark of hope. Buddy stayed close to her side, giving her the courage to step forward. The family knelt down to meet her. Hello, Lena, the woman said softly. We are so happy to meet you. We will take care of you. and Buddy can stay with you too. Lena looked at Buddy, then at the family. Slowly, she smiled. Okay, she whispered. Daniel felt a mixture of relief and happiness. He knew that Lena's new life was beginning, and that she would finally have the stability and love she had always needed. He stayed with her for a little while, helping her feel comfortable and safe. As evening approached, Lena sat in the family's living room. Buddy curled up beside her. She held a small stuffed animal and looked at Daniel with gratitude in her eyes. Thank you for finding me, she said softly. Daniel smiled. You were always brave, Lena. I just helped you find safety. Remember, you can always be strong, and Buddy will always be there with you. Lena hugged Buddy tightly, feeling the warmth and loyalty of her faithful friend. She knew that her journey had been difficult, but she also knew that she was no longer alone. The world was starting to feel safe, and she had people who cared for her. Over the next few weeks, Lena settled into her new home. She had her own room, toys to play with, and a loving family who treated her with care. Buddy was always by her side, his small presence giving her comfort and courage. Daniel visited occasionally, checking to make sure she was adjusting well and that everything was going smoothly. During one visit, Lena ran to him, smiling brightly. Look, Daniel, she exclaimed. I drew a picture of our family and Buddy. Daniel took the drawing and smiled. It showed Lena, Buddy, and the new family under a bright sun, with flowers and trees all around. This is beautiful, Lena, he said warmly. I am so proud of you. Lena blushed slightly and hugged Buddy. I like it here, she said softly. I feel happy. Daniel nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The little girl who had once been lost and afraid was now safe, loved, and beginning to dream about her future. He realized that every step of the journey had mattered, finding her in the alley, helping her trust again, and protecting her from harm. One afternoon, Lena and Buddy sat in the garden, enjoying the sunlight. She looked at Buddy and smiled. We made it, Buddy, she whispered. Buddy wagged his tail, resting his head on her lap. Lena stroked his fur gently, feeling a deep connection with her loyal friend. Daniel watched from a distance, his heart full. He knew that Lena's courage had carried her through the darkest moments, but he also knew that support and love had made the difference. With Buddy and her new family, she had the chance to grow, laugh, and live freely. As days passed, Lena's confidence grew. She played with other children, learned new things, and began to share her stories in small, safe ways. Buddy remained her constant companion, always attentive and protective. Daniel felt a quiet pride in seeing her blossom. One evening, Lena sat with Daniel in the garden, holding Buddy close. I feel safe now, she said softly. I am not afraid anymore. Daniel smiled. I am glad. Lena, you deserve to feel safe. You have shown great courage, and now you can enjoy your life with Buddy and your new family. Lena looked at Buddy, then back at Daniel. Thank you for finding me, she said again. Daniel knelt and hugged her gently. You were the brave one, Lena. You never gave up. I just helped you find the safety you deserved. That night, as Lena slept in her warm bed with Buddy at her feet, Daniel walked outside the house. He looked up at the stars and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The little girl who had slept among trash, who had faced hunger, fear, and loneliness, was finally safe. Her heart could begin to heal, and her life could now be filled with love and happiness. In the weeks that followed, Lena's new home became her safe world. She learned to trust again, laughed freely, and shared small joys with her family and Buddy. Daniel continued to check in, but he knew that Lena's courage and the love surrounding her were enough to keep her strong. One afternoon, Lena ran to him with Buddy following closely. Look, Daniel, she said excitedly. I drew another picture. This one is of me, Buddy, and all the people who care about me. Daniel looked at the drawing and smiled warmly. It showed Lena, Buddy, her new family, and even Daniel standing nearby. Bright colors filled the page, and Lena's small handwriting wrote, I am safe and loved. You have come a long way, Lena, Daniel said softly. You survived so much, and now you are happy. I am very proud of you. Lena hugged Buddy, then looked at Daniel with a bright smile. I will always remember you, she said softly. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. And I will always remember you, Lena. You taught me about courage and hope. You are truly special. That evening, as Lena and Buddy played in the garden under the warm sunlight, Daniel watched quietly. He knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but Lena now had the love, safety, and courage to face them. She had survived the streets, the fear, and the loneliness, and she had found a new beginning. Officer Daniel Harris had promised to protect her, and he had kept that promise. Lena's story, though painful at first, had transformed into a story of hope, courage, and love. She had learned to trust again. Buddy had remained her loyal companion, and together, they would continue to face the world with bravery and joy. The city outside moved on with its usual noise and activity. But inside Lena's new home, a little girl slept peacefully. Buddy curled at her feet, and the warmth of love surrounded them both. The truth of her past had been difficult to face, but it had led to a brighter future, one filled with happiness, safety, and endless possibilities. For Lena and Buddy, life was no longer a struggle for survival. It was a story of love, trust, and the unbreakable bond between a little girl and her loyal dog. And Officer Daniel Harris, who had found them in the darkest night, smiled quietly, knowing that he had helped create a new beginning, a future full of hope for a child who deserved nothing less than happiness.